Hello, fellow knights and warriors. I continue my adventure with Norman Saga, and today we are going into combat. Of course, it is a war game, so there is a lot of rules about combat, but today I'm going to focus on basics. After you will make move with all your units, it's time to attack. Attacks are not mandatory. I always found them a bit strange because we are so close to the enemy that standing and doing nothing seems to be quite strange for me, but even so, the rule says quickly, attacks are not mandatory. If you have your soldiers on the hexes adjacent to the enemy, you can attack, but you don't have to. So remember about it. You can move your troops close to the enemy and you don't have to attack them. But let's say you want to attack. So, does enemy have to take your attacks? Yes, there is only one exception. If a defender has his movement allowance higher than the attacker, there is a chance for him to retreat before the combat will even begin. So, let's assume that we have a Norman combat phase here, and all the Normans are going to attack their Byzantine enemies here. So, first of all, this Byzantine warrior, who has his movement allowance of 8, might try to run away from this Norman warrior before he will attack him. He has movement allowance of 6, he has movement allowance of 8, so he is free to go. And now, he can retreat 1 hex. If there is a mounted warrior, he can retreat 2 hexes. And now, he goes up, like that. You can only retreat for the hexes that are unoccupied. You cannot replace any friendly units to make way for you. You can only retreat to the clear hexes. Of course, you can try to move while enemies are adjacent to you, but you risk an infiltration test. For example, let's say that he's here and he wants to attack. He wants to retreat and he retreats there. This means that he has to take infiltration check due to this Norman warrior. But there is no one here, so he can retreat, and this concludes this combat. The other situation where you don't have to attack, or you can avoid being attacked, is the situation where when your warrior is on the hex where enemy cannot attack. For example, let's assume that this Byzantine warrior is here and this Norman knight is there. He cannot attack him because he is on the 3 hex, and knights cannot enter 3 hexes, so he would be safe on this hex. Apart of this, we have to resolve our attacks. So, how you do this? This is pretty simple. First of all, you take your warrior's attack strength, and then you take defender's defense strength. So let's start here. We have 12 versus 8. So this is 4. We are moving into combat table, and now a difference is 0 to 4. Notice that there are 2 tables, one when you are attacking mounted opponents and one when you are fighting against infantry. We are fighting against foot warrior here, so we have 12 versus 8, so this is 4, so we'll be using column 0, 4. Next, we have to check for the terrain, because terrain can also provide some changes in our combat table. To make things short, each kind of terrain can provide three ways of advantage. 0, which means this is neutral and it provides no impact for combat. Minus, this means that this terrain is disadvantage for the defender, and plus, this means that this terrain is good for the defender. If both characters are in the same terrain, then terrain is not working at all. But if they are on the different kind of terrains, then terrain might change our column. If there is a minus and defender is on the minus, then this means that we can to move our column one left. If right. If a defender is on the hex with plus, this means that we are moving one shift left. So here they are both on the same kind of terrain, so no modifiers. We have 0, 4, and notice that our defender is in armor, his defense is encircled. This means that we have to add +1 to our die roll. So we are making 1d10 roll, and this is 4. We have to add +1, so it's 5. So we are seeking for the result in the verse 5 or of 0, 4 column. This is B. What it says: one attacker retreats 1 hex. So our Norman has to retreat 1 hex. He cannot retreat onto hex occupied by enemy warrior. He can retreat on the hex occupied by friendly warrior, but this friendly warrior must move on some other hex aside. I will cover retreats and advance after combat later. So now we need to know that because of this result, one attacker retreats 1 hex. If there will be more attackers, then attacking player chooses the one that has to retreat. Now, let's go here. Here we have a different situation. We have 2 warriors attacking a single warrior, and now attacker might choose if he wants to attack with them together against him, or he wants to perform 2 independent attacks against him. If he would perform 1 attack, he takes their strength and adds it together, creating 1 big attack factor. So it will be 25 versus 8. 25 versus 8 will be 17. So we'll be checking for our result in the column of 30, 20 as a base column. Next, we have to check for terrain. He is on the slope. Let's see. Slope provides minus. This means this is bad terrain for the defender, so we have to shift 1 column right into 21, 30. And finally, if we have 2 or more warriors attacking a single warrior, we also get 1 shift in the favor of the attacker. This means that we are moving in the column 30, 31, 50. And now we are making a roll. It is 10. He is in armor, so we would add +1, but still it is 10, so it's 11, and we cannot get more than 10, so we'll be seeking for the result in the column of 10. In the 31, 50, it is C. All defenders retreats 1 hex, so he has to retreat 1 hex, and our warriors can perform advance after combat. Like with retreat, I will cover advance after combat later. And from the other hand, if they would attack separately, then he will attack first with 30 minus 8, so it will be 5, so it will be 5, 8, +1 for the terrain, +1 it will be 9, 12. I will make a roll and 1, and +1 it will be E. So it will be 2 in the column of 9, 12, it will be E. 1 defender wounded, so he will be wounded. And now he will attack him with his own strength, so it will be 12 versus 4, so it will be 8, 9, 12, and plus 1 because of the terrain, so it will be 30, 20. Another roll, 6 plus 1 is 7, it is C. All defenders retreats 1 hex, so he will have to retreat. As you can see, sometimes it is good to attack with your warriors together, because you get this nice column shift for joint attack, and sometimes it makes sense to perform 2 independent attacks, because now he will notice that he was wounded, so any other wound or stun would result with killing him. So sometimes it is a good idea to attack independently. Next, let's go here. We have 3 Norman warriors attacking 1 Byzantine mounted warrior. So they decide to attack together. They have 13, 20, 24 and 50. 50 versus 70, it will be 33. So 33 means 31, 50. Do we get a modifier? Nope. Why not? Because we have 2 leg warriors and 1 mounted warrior fighting against mounted warrior. If there will be 2 or more mounted warriors fighting against a single mounted warrior, then we would get a column shift. But since we have only 1 mounted warrior versus 1 mounted warrior, we don't get a shift because of the number. So we'll be seeking a result in the combat against mounted opponents table in the 31-15 table. We are making a roll, and this is 5. Enemy is in armor, so this is 6. And in the 31, 50 and 6, this is F. 1 rider wounded. This means that he gets onto his wounded side. And finally here, our knight attacks Lombardian knight. And he's attacking him from this direction, so not from his front direction. Does it change anything? No. They are simply fighting against each other normally. So this is 25 versus 12, so it will be 13. So 13, 20, and we are adding plus 1 because enemy wears armor. So a roll is made, and this is 3 versus 1 plus 1, so it's 4. 4 in the 30, 20 is F. So 1 rider wounded. So he is wounded as well. And when character is wounded, it is always very easy to kill him later. So these are the basics of the combat in Norman Saga. I will return to the combat stuff in my next video, when I will cover stuff about retreats and advance after combat.